We did it. Toronto is now less affordable than both Miami and New York City. And if you were curious on how Toronto real estate looks compared to the rest of North America, this article that just came out breaks down exactly that. I'm Ouzas. I'm a realtor here in Toronto. If you ever want to discuss what's been happening on the ground level in Toronto real estate, despite what all the articles have been saying online, you can book a call with me in that first link in the description down below. Anytime these news articles come out to break down affordability costs in Toronto versus other cities in the world, I'm always skeptical of where they get their data and how they've broken it down. The article we're going to go into today provide a pretty in-depth look and actually uses US dollars across the board, which is something that I don't feel we get enough of. In general, we usually just see numbers without any context of the actual currency. Now, on a world stage, Toronto is still relatively affordable to some of the other major cities across the world, but let's see exactly how that looks if we're looking at North America. Jumping over to Blog.to, this article says Toronto is now less affordable than New York and Miami. And if we're looking at where they got this data, it is from Zoocasa, which we'll take a look at in a short second. It says housing markets across North America have been affected by rising interest rates and low inventory over the past few years. Canadian buyers have been particularly affected thanks to smaller median incomes, according to a report by Zoocasa. And here's where it says the national average real estate prices. Canadian average up here in around 780,000. Canadian average in US dollars at 575,000. Again, that's where sometimes these numbers get taken out of context when you don't factor in the exchange. And average in the US, 540,000. In 2021, it goes on to say that the median household in the US was $75,149. And in Canada, that number at $54,074. The disparity really becomes apparent when you break down the average home prices. In fact, in 2022, the average home price in Canada was $30,000 more than the average in the USA. And that's even though Canadians made $20,000 less dollars. Let's take a look at the actual article, which says how much more affordable is housing in the US compared to Canada. And it shows, here's that graph once again, and it was assumed that a 20% down payment was made. Mortgage is taken out over a 30-year timeline per term for US borrowers and amortization for Canadian. US affordability was calculated on fixed mortgage rate of 6.79, which was the average of March 28, 2024, and 4.79 was used for Canadian borrowers, the best rate available on the week of March 31st, 2024, according to Rate Hub. Taxes, insurance, heating, other expenses, and debts not factored into the calculation, and Canadian dollar figures converted to a 1.35 Canadian dollars to $1 USD. So here's North America, a lot of the major cities across the board. It says if there's over a $500,000 difference, you're looking at a dark maroon, and over a $50,000 difference, you're looking at blue, and all the other colors in between. Some of those standouts in red: New York City, Toronto, Miami, LA, Seattle, and some of them in blue: Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and St. John, New Brunswick. Now here's a whole list, and it's quite a big list, but if we're taking a look at Toronto, it's now ahead of Miami and New York City. And for this asterisk on New York, they actually used a December 2023 number for this calculation. So I'm not too sure if that's changed since December 2023. Interestingly enough, Hamilton and Burlington were just behind Seattle, New York City, and Miami, and not too far off of Toronto as well. And then taking two steps down, Kitchener-Waterloo also in that top 15 list, putting it ahead of Nashville, Phoenix, Portland, Washington, Orlando. It also comes as no surprise, Vancouver amongst the top three, and Toronto in number 6 behind only LA, Boston, Vancouver, San Diego, San Fran. Look at the lower end of the chart. Edmonton, Saskatoon, and St. John remain the 3 most affordable cities to live in across North America as a whole. And these are some pretty good numbers here, where the median income compared to the price of a house puts you at a plus $56,888 on the affordability level. And if we're taking a look again at Toronto, basically max affordability at the median income in US dollars is $355,892. However, the median home price over $718,000, and that's where you see that gap of $362,000, making it more expensive than both Miami and New York, and about $140,000 more expensive than Hamilton, Burlington area. Anytime we get this data, I'm always so curious as to where they come up with these numbers and how to break them down. Essentially, what they're doing is taking the median income for a city like Toronto, and that factors in all of Toronto. Now, I don't know if they're talking about Toronto proper versus the greater Toronto area, because that could play a difference in someone's income. Whereas when they use New York City, they're using New York City versus maybe the whole of New York. I'm not exactly sure how they factor in the boroughs compared to how they factor in the Greater Toronto Area, which has 6 areas combined across the Greater Toronto Area. Drop a comment down below if this number surprises you and if you'd consider going to move to Miami because it's slightly more affordable than a city like Toronto. And if you are looking for real estate in Miami or even in New York, I'd love to hear your experience on the cost of that real estate, because I don't know if these median or average benchmark prices really tell the full story when it comes to purchasing real estate and how affordable it actually is. I'm Mike Ouzas. Thanks for watching.